Alright, so one day later than usual, but it's time for the weekly recap. So let's go over all the games up here on the board. There's a couple games that didn't fit, so we're going to do this in two parts. And we'll go over them all and discuss how it went. And before I begin with the games, there is breaking news that's happening right now as I'm recording this, where the Titans are the first team to have an outbreak of COVID this season. So that's all playing out in real time as I record this. There's no real news to give that you can't give other than, the statements that are being put out by the teams in the NFL and the NFLPA. So I'm not really going to make a video on that. I thought I would just mention it because that could have a significant impact on games going forward. And if that is something that happens, we'll do a separate video. But for today, for right now, we're just recapping week 3 and let's talk about it. So first game on the docket, Bears beat the Falcons 30-26. I get the red X for picking this wrong. Bears get the banner for the win. Falcons fans, how do you feel today? It's horrible, isn't it? So Trubisky gets benched in the third quarter, and Nick Foles comes in, being the backup star that he is, does what he does, and leads them to victory with 188 yards passing and 3 scores. Despite Trubisky being benched in the third quarter, he actually led the Bears in rushing with 1 carry for 45 yards. So that's disheartening if you're a David Montgomery owner in fantasy football, which is what I am. Falcons blow a 26-10 lead. It's the same story for the third week in a row. It's become a meme at this point. Dan Quinn is the odds-on favorite, according to Vegas, to be the first one to get fired. And for some reason, here we are Tuesday afternoon, and it hasn't happened yet. But going forward, it looks like the Bears are going to move on from Trubisky. Nick Foles has been named the starter. And this is a really fraudulent 3-0 team. What can I say? They've gotten lucky. And I think that luck is going to run out quickly. I don't think this is a team that's going to cross the finish line with more than 9 wins. It's a miracle that they've gotten 3 so far. On the flip side of that, the Falcons are better than this. We all know it's just a matter of time before this curse gets broken. So we'll see how that goes. Moving on to the Rams and Bills. Very good game yesterday. Bills win 35-32. I get the red X for picking this wrong. This was a tough week. Bills get the banner for picking this correctly. Jared Goff and company had a good day. 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Henderson established the run very well. 20 carries, 114 yards, and a score. But the story of the day is Josh Allen. 24 for 33, 311 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. They tried to do their best Atlanta Falcons impersonation, blowing a 23 lead, which I guess is the least safe lead in all of football now. And the Rams actually got the lead late. I think it was 32-28, but Josh Allen stepped up on that final drive, persevered, led them to a game-winning score, and they're 3-0. So I think the Josh Allen MVP talk should probably start if they haven't already. I know Russell Wilson's probably going to run away with it, but at the same time, he's just looked phenomenal through the first 3 weeks, and the Rams are a team that is worthy of, not of being a team that is good competition. The first couple weeks, Jets and Dolphins, you're like, we have to see more. I think the Rams are a legitimate contender for the playoffs, so to dismiss this as another, we got to wait and see, I think that's foolish. The Rams are a legit team, legit defense. He played well because he's good. On the Rams side, it sucks that they dug themselves in that big of a hole, but it's like Sean McVay said after the game, it's really good that they didn't quit and they kept churning and they almost won. So he was good to see that sort of resilience from his players, and that's going to help them going forward. Moving on, the next game of the day, the Browns beat the football team 34-20. I get the green check for picking this one right, and the Browns get the banner for the win. Dwayne Haskins is not developing like I thought he would, and this team looks like it is stuck in neutral, and I think if they end up with a top 10 pick next year, they will take a quarterback and they will move on from him. He goes 224 yards for 2 scores, 3 picks. Nick Chubb has a day, 19 carries, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt had a great game. Cody Parkey looks like he's resurrected his career in Cleveland. He hit all of his kicks today, on Sunday. And, Browns offense looks good. Stefanski has another second week in a row where everything looks like it is in full function. And the Washington football team is just not good enough to keep up. So, but they still lead the division with a 1-2 record. So, silver lining. Moving on, we have the Titans and the Vikings. Titans win 31-30. I get the green check for predicting this correctly. They get the banner for the win. As I said at the top of the video, this is the game that is being contact traced right now that they're having to deal with, and the outbreak is largely to do with the Titans, but the Vikings have had no positive tests as of yesterday. They're going through the whole spiel again, so we'll see how that happens. But as far as the game goes, the Vikings defense did a good job of making Ryan Tannehill look like the old Ryan Tannehill. 321 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. So he looked like his Miami days again. So the defense did a good job disguising the coverage, using the secondaries in ways that were creative to sort of throw him off his game. Stifled Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. The only thing they couldn't do was stifle Derrick Henry, which I think everybody knew was going to be impossible, given that interior defense and that run defense as a whole is pretty garbage. But the fact that they were able to sort of, keep them to 6 field goal attempts, and that's the key takeaway really from this defense, is that they played good enough in the bend but don't break strategy that they limited the Titans to only 2 trips in the end zone and 6 field goal attempts. Now, it's a miracle beyond miracles that Gostkowski hit all 6 of those, and the fact that it's even a bigger miracle is that some of them were from beyond 50. So really, you can't really ask much more than that. I mean, you had the turnover, 6 field goal attempts. It's just, the chips didn't fall your way. And I think that there's less blame on this defense for that loss and more blame on the offense, particularly the offensive line, for that final disgusting drive. So it is what it is, and now we're going to be walking into the unknown this week with both these teams to see if they even play next week. Moving on, Patriots-Raiders. Patriots win 36-20. I get the green check for the win. They get the banner for the win. I was accurate in predicting that Bill Belichick was going to take away Darren Waller from this team, and that's just what he did. Darren Waller only had, I believe it was 2 targets for 9 yards, or 2 catches for 9 yards, excuse me, no scores. He only had 4 targets throughout the entire day. So I'm basically in Bill Belichick's head, I guess, because I called that, and it happened. Derek Carr still had a good day, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rex Burkhead shows up out of nowhere with a 3-touchdown game. The running back by committee situation, 4 years in New England, has always been a head-scratcher, but somehow it works. And it'll be somebody different next week. It'll be somebody different the week after that. Damian Harris comes off IR soon, so it's hard to predict what running back is worth a damn in that system. But Patriots win. Raiders fall back down to earth just a little bit. I think it's still a good football team, but, when you go on the road against a team that's managed by Bill Belichick, you're going to have problems. Next, we have the 49ers and the Giants. 49ers win 36-9. I get the red X. They get the banner. I anticipated this being more competitive because of how decimated the 49ers are with injury. I mean, I could rattle off all the names, but it's a waste of time at this point. And the Giants are just so poorly coached. I don't think the world of Joe Judge. He didn't impress me in the beginning, and ever since then, nothing he's done has worked. I think Daniel Jones is probably on his way to being ruined, besides, despite there being flashes of a worthy skill set that you can mold into something that could be potentially really good. And of course the injuries on their side too doesn't help, but at the same time, I mean, come on, you just got torched by a backup quarterback in an offense that is just playing nothing but backups. So I don't know, 36 points to that offense. I know Kyle Shanahan's offense is good, but the personnel was beneath you on Sunday. I don't know how that happened, but it's hard. It's starting to get hard to tell which is the worst team in New York. Moving on, speaking of worst, Bengals and Eagles tie at 23 apiece. And by the end of the overtime period, it looked like they were both happy with that outcome. They both played for the tie. Now, what that means, is that I think it was just, a lack of being able to move the ball down the field in the overtime session. And I think Doug Peterson decided, well, a tie is better than a loss. I'm not going to risk it because with this division being terrible, that being the NFC East, I still have a shot at 0-2-1. And he's right, because the team leading the division right now is 1-2. So it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. It's just absolutely hilarious that it happened. I didn't put a banner or a check or an X because it's push. I don't know. Carson Wentz is not doing good. He may need to figure something out. He was 29 of 47, 225 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Best receiver of the day was the only one that was left, and that's Greg Ward for 8 catches, 72 yards, and a score. Joe Burrow still looks good. 31 of 44, 312, 2 scores. Both of those went to T. Higgins. I think Joe Burrow is going to be fine. It's just a matter of getting him an offensive line that's good around him and getting some better play calling. Moving on to the Steelers and Texans. This game was more competitive than I thought it was going to be, given that I thought that the Texans O-line has been underachieving this year, and the Steelers pass rush defense is just phenomenal. But they win 28-21. They get the banner for the win. I get the green check for accurately predicting this one. Deshaun Watson did the best that he could to keep them in the game. 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Ben Roethlisberger has an average day, 237 yards, 2 scores, and I say average because he's done way better than that in the past. There's precedent. James Conner has a good week, 19 carries, 109 yards, and a touchdown. The interesting note is that Deontay Johnson did get hurt in this game, and given the fact that they have so many mouths to feed in this offense, I don't think it's going to be particularly damning. Because you still have Eric Ebron, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington, Chase Claypool. So I don't think they'll miss him that much, but he is much better with that being on the field for that offense. So it's just an item to monitor going forward. But the Steelers are 3-0. Texans are 0-3. If we do have Vikings football this upcoming weekend, it will be the Tank Bowl between the 0-3 Texans and 0-3 Vikings. All right, moving on to the last column here. We have the Jets and the Colts. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because the Jets are awful and Adam Gase should be fired right now. Sam Darnold goes 17 for 29, 106 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 2 of those being pick sixes. He has no help. He has absolutely no help. The offense is bad. Mekhi Becton got hurt. Frank Gore falls over and gets 3.5 yards every single time. And there's nothing more spectacular about him than that. And Adam Gase is a terrible head coach, and I don't understand why he's still employed. On the other side, it's nice to see the emergence of Mo Alley-Cox. He has another good game, 3 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Hope to see more of him. The Colts win 36-7. Why do I have the Packers banner up there? That's weird. They get the banner, I get the green check mark. Moving on to the Panthers and the Chargers. The Chargers did one of those things where they played better against the Super Bowl champs, and then they come against the Panthers, who are basically in rebuild mode, and it's just a different team this week. So it's one of those things that makes you scratch your head. But at the same time, Justin Herbert is still a rookie. He's going to have games like this. It's just unfortunate that it came against a team that they probably should have beat. He goes 35 for 49, 333 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 fumbles, 1 of which he lost, so he's responsible for 2 turnovers. Keenan Allen has a good game, 13 catches, 132 yards, and a score. Mike Davis played well in injury substitution. I don't know what you would call it, but in place of McCaffrey, he had a good game, both running the ball and catching the ball. So the offense might be okay without McCaffrey for a while. And then Bridgewater had a decent game, 235 yards, and a score. Going forward, this is probably just a good stepping stone for the Panthers to evaluate what they have. I don't think that this team is going places, but the fact that it got the win over the Chargers that almost beat the defending Super Bowl champion tells me that they've got some good personnel in place. Moving on to the Bucs and the Broncos. I'm not going to spend much time on this one either because it was a foregone conclusion before the game even started. Brady has a good game, 297, 3 scores. Mike Evans has a hilarious stat line of 2 catches, 2 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Jeff Driscoll was benched late in the game in favor of Brett Rypien, who we haven't seen since the Boise State days. I forgot he was even in the league. But now we face this question of whether or not Driscoll or Rypien are going to be the quarterback going forward. They still have Blake Bortles on the roster that they signed last week, so maybe he gets the nod. Who knows at this point? It's probably too early for Bortles to do anything, given that he's only been there a limited amount of time, and he still needs to learn the playbook. All right, moving on. We have the Lions and the Cardinals. Lions win 26-23 on a last-minute field goal, so they get the banner. I get the red X for picking this one incorrectly. Matt Stafford has a really good game, 270 yards, 2 scores, no interceptions. It's always a really good game when he doesn't turn the ball over. Golladay. Finally, welcome to 2020. Golladay comes in 3 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Kyler Murray probably should have had a better game. The stats are good, but the fact that he turned the ball over 3 times is kind of annoying. Andy Isabella had a breakout day with 2 scores. And the Lions running back usage is actually kind of funny because you spend all this draft capital on guys like Kerryon Johnson, DeAndre Swift. They get a combined 4 touches, and then you got Adrian Peterson, the ageless veteran they signed in free agency, and he gets 22. So that's bizarre. But it worked out Matt Patricia gets a win, which is surprising. The Cardinals take a step back with that loss. That's a tough one. So they go to 2-1. It's still having a good season. I still believe in them. But losing to the Lions is something that you cannot be doing if you want to seriously contend for a playoff spot. That's just my 2 cents. All right, so we've run out of space. I've got 3 more games to go, so I'm going to switch the boards up. All right, so let's wrap this up with the 3 marquee games of the week. That is beginning with the Seahawks and the Cowboys. Seahawks win 38-31. They get the banner for the win. I get the green check for picking this one correctly. Prescott has a really good game. 472 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. That last pick was a desperation, but at the same time, it's on the stat sheet, so it counts. Michael Gallup had a great game, 6 catches, 138 yards, and a touchdown. Russell Wilson is just continuing to cook, really solidifying that huge early lead for the MVP race, 315 yards, 5 touchdowns. Explain to me how some defense in this league is going to stop Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, because I just don't think you can. The good news is that yesterday we got the update on the Chris Carson knee injury, and he's okay. The ligaments are intact. That has been one of the, sad pieces of post-game news, if you will, is that we have to deal with the fallout from that play, which is being looked at as a dirty play. So going forward, we'll keep an eye on how that goes. But Chris Carson is okay, and that's what's important. As far as this game goes, like I said, it's going to be really hard to stop the Seahawks, and it's going to be really hard to stop DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. The thing that I would be worried about as a Seahawks fan is that the Seahawks pass defense is very bad. Now, they've played some good competition so far, the Patriots, the Cowboys, I forget who the first game was against, but they lit that, but, there is an argument to be made that the defense is not very good for Seattle, and that's what's causing Russell Wilson to have to put up these kind of numbers. So if there's ever a team that figures out how to stop Russell Wilson, I mean, good luck with that, you might find yourself in a little bit of a pickle. Because the defense is just not pulling its weight right now. And we'll have to see how that goes going forward. Moving on to the Sunday night game, Packers beat the Saints 37-30. They get the banner for the win. I get the green check mark. Aaron Rodgers continues to do what he does best, and that's put points on the board, 283 yards and 3 scores. Adam Lazard with a breakout game, 6 catches, 146 yards and a touchdown. Drew Brees has a decent stat line of 288 yards and 3 scores, but most of that work was done by Alvin Kamara, really. One of those touchdowns was a 50-yarder that Drew Brees, I think, threw 2 yards, maybe 3, maybe 0. He's not attempting anything beyond 10 yards, and yeah, it might be time to have a serious discussion about putting Jameis Winston in as the starter, because Winston's arm is not dead and Drew Brees' arm is, and even with Michael Thomas coming back whenever he does, I don't know how, this team expects to win games going forward unless they're able to keep the score really close, keep Alvin Kamara super healthy, because Latavius Murray is not Alvin Kamara, and if something were to happen to Kamara, they'd be in a world of hurt. The funny thing is that, speaking of the quarterbacks, I think that the Taysom Hill fumble was probably what was the sort of the nail in the coffin for this game, because Sean Payton just can't get out of his own way. The whole Michael Thomas injury happened because he's trying to run up the score, and then he's trying to be goofy and creative with his quarterback, where he, subs out Drew Brees, puts him on the sideline, puts Taysom Hill in, and he, of course, he turns the ball over. So I think they need to stop with the gimmicks, play normal football, stop trying to be the smartest man in the room, and have some balls and put in Jameis Winston, because he's the only one that's going to be able to push it down the field. So that is that game. Moving on to the Monday night game, which we kind of expected to be more spectacular and high scoring, but it turns out the Chiefs are really good on offense and defense. The Chiefs defense did what we all thought the Ravens defense would do and create problems for Patrick Mahomes and company, but Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, they have all the answers to the tests, and they passed with flying colors. Mahomes, I think, was responsible for 5 touchdowns in this game. He threw a touchdown to Eric Fisher, which was, no one saw that coming. A really bad day for fantasy football owners, because they threw touchdowns to just about everybody other than people you were starting in your fantasy league. As far as the Ravens go, they know they're a good team, and, you can't really discredit them, for coming out and not performing well against the Chiefs, because it's the defending Super Bowl champions. People are going to look at this game and point to it and be like, oh, Lamar Jackson can't do this and can't do that. It's just, it's one of those instances where you have a bad game. It's against a really good team, and things happen. yes, he's not done well against the Chiefs. I don't think he's beaten them yet, but, you know, going into halftime with a 10-point lead, he's 20-0. He's the reigning MVP. So at the same time that it was a bad night, I don't think it's proof of anything. Yeah, the stats are horrible. You know, doesn't have 100 yards passing, doesn't have 100 yards rushing. The Ravens receivers also dropped a lot of passes tonight, or Monday night. So it's just a matter of time. You know, they got to get their stuff together. They go back to the drawing board and figure out what works for them. And I think we'll see that going through in the future. They'll be fine. Both these teams are really good, and they'll probably see each other in the playoffs. So that is it for the Week 3 recap. I end the week with a not-so-good series of picks, going 9-6, not counting the Eagles and Bengals game that ended in a tie. I figured we'll just call that a push and wipe it off the record. For the season, I'm 31-16. Not terrible, but also not great. It could be a lot better. This upcoming week is going to be difficult because it's a lot of chalk. The lines have come out for the games, and there's a lot of favorable ones, but it looks like there's not really many 50-50 matchups, so it's going to be tough to pick games for the next week, but we're going to do it in a few days anyway. That's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.